Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hi. I post true crime content like this all the time, so if that's something you're interested in, hit that like button, subscribe, and put your post notifications on so you know whenever I upload a brand new video. So today we're going to be talking about the TikTok viral killer, Isabella Guzman. Isabella Guzman was an 18-year-old girl who was living in Aurora, Colorado with her mother and her stepfather. Isabella was pretty average in school. She didn't have amazing grades or really any major career aspirations. The relationship between Isabella and her parents had always been pretty troubled. She would always misbehave and be a bit of a nuisance. Isabella's parents actually ended up getting a divorce, and Isabella was set to live with her mother, whose name was Yoon. However, this did not last very long. At the age of 7, Yoon sent her daughter Isabella to go live with her father, Robert, because she had had enough. Her behaviour was just too much for her. So Isabella went and lived with her father Robert for a while, and then later returned to her mother's care, yet her behaviour had not improved at all. The relationship between Yoon and her daughter was not a good one at all, which we will get into later. So Yoon and her ex-husband Robert actually still worked together. When Isabella was younger, her parents had bought a studio together, and I believe that they were both artists. After the divorce, they both couldn't afford to leave their current job, so they both continued to work with each other, which wasn't much of an issue as their marriage ended on good terms. Isabella used to go to this studio after school and help out, but she hated it. She hated spending any amount of time with her family. She was just quite a very antisocial kid from a very young age. And Isabella hated her mother for having this job. It wasn't a good paying job by any means, and Isabella resented her mother for it. She hated the fact that her mother was poor. And I feel like this is quite a common thing you see in children. They resent their parents for not having money. They are just like, why can't I be like all the other rich kids who can afford all these nice things? And it just all stems from a place of jealousy and wanting what they can't have. But all these other kids have all these nice clothes and new toys, and when you get older you kind of realise that being poor isn't a choice, and that your parents just did everything they could to provide for you and your family. However, Isabella really never grew out of that mindset, so she was always resenting her mother for having a low-paying job. As she was a child, she would just behave badly, and as she got older, it continued to get worse and worse. She was skipping school and she had really bad attendance, and after a while she just dropped out altogether. And her parents were so disappointed with her because she dropped out right before her exams. She couldn't even be bothered to just stick it out, get it over with, and then it was just over. Her parents understand that school definitely wasn't for her. I mean, school's not for everybody, and they just wished that she just stuck it out. As a child, she would just spend as little time with her family as she could, but as she got older and turned into a teenager, the only time she would see her parents was to argue with them. A lot of these arguments were due to the fact that Isabella would sneak boys into the house. She would let them into the back door, and then when it came for them to leave, they would climb out of her bedroom window, run across the garden, and then hop the fence. And pretty much every single time, Yoon would see these boys jumping over her fence. She was upset that her daughter was disrespectful of the home and her mother's rules. The relationship between Yoon and Isabella was very much that Yoon provided her daughter with everything she could, and Isabella was just ungrateful and nasty. Another reason why Isabella hated her mother is because she had remarried. So obviously Robert and Yumi had divorced when they were younger, and Yumi had remarried to a man named Ryan Hoy. So she was now Yumi Hoy. And Isabella felt like her mother had replaced her father with her stepfather Ryan, so that meant she also had hatred for Ryan. Arguments between Yumi, Ryan, and Isabella were a common occurrence. And Isabella usually resorted to physical violence, and one thing I know she would do is spit on her mother, which is just disgusting. Isabella would constantly threaten her mother with violence. She would send threatening texts and emails to her mother saying she was going to pay for treating her this way. And Yumi knew that these weren't just empty threats. She knew that her daughter would most likely act on these threats. And Yumi was honestly scared of her daughter, which is kind of understandable. If you're getting texts saying you're gonna hurt her, then you'd probably be a bit scared. One time, Yumi genuinely believed that her daughter was going to follow through with these threats. So she called the police. Nothing happened, but who knows, if the police weren't involved, then would something have happened? Now, all of this comes from sources close to the family, friends, and family members. Now, Isabella recalls her childhood to be much different to this. Isabella claims that since the age of 9, she had been abused. Both her parents were Jehovah's Witnesses, and so was her stepfather. So this meant that Isabella was raised as a Jehovah's Witness up until the age of 14, where she began to gain her own beliefs, and she kind of distanced herself from the religion. Her views just didn't match up with her parents, and when she told her parents she didn't want to be a Jehovah's Witness anymore, she claims that that's when the abuse worsened. This is all what she said in court, and there are no sources like family or friends to confirm these claims, so I don't want to say that she's lying, but we don't know. She could just be using this as a defence to strengthen her defence in court, so we don't know. However, no one can really confirm this to be true, and many people believe that this is something she made up in court to gain sympathy and to reduce her sentence in prison. Now, everyone on TikTok didn't bother to fact check this abuse claim, so they all ran with it, being all sympathetic with her, being like, oh, she was abused, so it was justified. It's not fully known if she was abused, so it can't really be used as a defence, can it? August 28th, 2013, Ryan Hoy, Isabella Guzman's stepfather, called the police informing them of an incident that had happened between her and her mother. She had sent her mother a threatening email after a heated argument saying that she was going to make up for what she had done and said that night. The police were called due to the family knowing that Isabella didn't make empty threats and knew that she probably would act on them. Yumi had also got in contact with Robert, asking him to come to the house and have a word with their daughter. She thought that her father, who she saw less, would be able to talk some sense into her, and Isabella just would listen to her from a fresh perspective. Robert and Isabella sat in the garden for well over an hour and just discussed the whole issues in the relationship, and so she could just vent and get all her feelings out. Robert told Isabella among the lines of, you're 18 now, and her mother is well in her rights to, kick her out. And if she wasn't going to follow her mother's rules, then she would have to move out. And at the end of this conversation, Robert honestly believed that he had gotten through to Isabella and thought she would make some positive changes. He thought that the family was going to get closer and that all the issues may be resolved. However, he was very wrong. Ella had actually spent this whole time planning what she was going to do next. This whole positive attitude towards her father was just an act. So Isabella spent the rest of her night in her bedroom, which was nothing new. It's something that she always did. At about 9 p.m, Yumi went upstairs to have a shower, and then afterwards she and Ryan were going to go to bed. So Ryan is downstairs in the living room doing whatever, and he hears the shower turn on, and he thinks that Yumi's just getting in the shower. He then hears a loud thud followed by a lot of banging and screaming. He rushes upstairs to investigate, and as he gets upstairs he sees the bathroom door get slammed in his face. Briefly before the door slammed, Ryan had seen Isabella slamming the door shut with her and her mother both inside the bathroom. Ryan struggled with Isabella to open the door, but she managed to overpower him and she locked him outside. He's shouting at Isabella to stop and to leave her mother alone. As Ryan is outside the bathroom door, he can hear banging and screaming. He can also hear his wife shouting his name, and he can do nothing to help her except run downstairs and call the police. As Ryan ran back upstairs while on the phone with 911, he can see a pool of blood seeping from under the door of the bathroom. He then hears his wife say Jehovah, which means God, and this ended up being her last words. Then there is just silence. No more banging or screaming, just deafening silence. Ryan is still on the phone with 911 at this point, and he's terrified. He's just heard his wife, the love of his life, shouting for him to help her, but he could do nothing. And he heard her being brutally murdered by her very own daughter. Suddenly, the bathroom door unlocks, swings open, and in the doorway is Isabella Guzman, covered in blood, holding a knife. Ryan just stood there, frozen in fear. He didn't know if he was about to be attacked, but Isabella just looked straight ahead and went downstairs. He says that she didn't have an evil or sinister look on her face. It's just like she'd come out of the bathroom after going to the toilet, like she just hadn't brutally murdered her own mother. Ryan ran into the bathroom. He tried to give Yumi CPR, tried everything he could to help his wife, but he just knew deep down that it was too late. Yumi was dead. Most of the stab wounds were to her head and neck area, and she was covered in blood, so she was pretty much unrecognisable. In her autopsy, it was found that Yumi Hoy had been stabbed a total of 79 times. Now, the official number of stab wounds was 79, however, in a lot of the TikToks and articles, it was said to be 151. With this case being heavily on TikTok, this case was greatly dramatised and sensationalised. People keep telling this story over and over, and each time people add something to make it more horrific and dramatic. It's very much a Chinese whispers effect. And this case is pretty horrific anyway, without it being added onto by random people on TikTok. So, in the autopsy, 79 stab wounds were found, 31 of which were on the face and 48 which were in and around her neck. When a person goes for the face of a victim, the murder is so much more personal. I mean, your face is the most distinguishable part of you, so it shows that Isabella killing her mother was so personal and was just filled with so much rage and emotion. The main injuries were those 79 stab wounds to the face and neck area, but there were more injuries to the rest of her body, which were done with a baseball bat. I'm not sure if this was done before, during, or after the death, but most sources I read kind of suggested that it was after the death. Now, going back to the 151 injuries, it may be 151 injuries rather than 151 stab wounds, as TikTok would suggest. So 79 stab wounds and 72 other injuries. So now going back to the timeline, the police and an ambulance had arrived at the house. At this point, Isabella had fled into the night, but because Ryan had seen Isabella leaving the bathroom after the murder, he told police who exactly had done this. A police search party was sent out to look for Isabella Guzman. At this point, she was still armed and dangerous, and could still be in some sort of psychotic rage. Police put Isabella's picture on every news and TV outlet so that everyone knew to be looking out for her. The police knew that they needed her in custody fast. The following morning, police received a call because someone had found what they thought was a dead body in a car park. When police arrived, they found 18-year-old Isabella Guzman asleep in her car. It wasn't a dead body. It's understandable that this person thought it was a dead body because she was asleep in her car and she was covered in blood from the night before. The police arrested Isabella Guzman and she went pretty peacefully. She didn't put up a fight. They found lots of evidence inside her car and just in the general area of the car park. Isabella was first taken to the hospital because she had sustained a few injuries herself during the attack. She had some cuts on her hand, where, because blood is slippery, when she was stabbing, the knife would have slipped, and then when she grabbed it, she must have grabbed the blade and that cut her hand. And she still has scars to this day, which kind of good, so can remind her of what she did for the rest of her life. Once Isabella had been treated at the hospital, she was taken to the police station for questioning and a psychiatric evaluation. It was pretty obvious that Isabella Guzman was suffering from some sort of mental illness, and this was confirmed when she was diagnosed with schizophrenia. At this point, she'd been having both audio and visual delusions for several years prior to the murder. She also had the stereotypical symptoms of hearing voices. However, it's stereotypical for a reason, because it's a very real symptom of schizophrenia. She says that these voices would tell her that she needed to kill someone, her mother specifically, because she believed that her mother was a woman named Cecilia, and that she needed to kill her to save the world.
19-year-old accused of stabbing her mother in the neck and the face more than 150 times. And now this young woman, Isabella Guzman is her name, she may be found not guilty by reason of insanity. 7 News reporter Lance Hernandez live now with these new developments. And Lance, Guzman could go to the state mental hospital instead of prison.
And that's only for an indeterminate amount of time, Anne. Now, when police were called to the victim's house on August 28th, they were called there twice. The first time, they found no incidents or hostility. The second time, they found the body of the victim, Yeonmi Hoi, stabbed numerous times, hit with a baseball bat. Now, after stabbing her mom and hitting her with that baseball bat, Isabella Guzman went to a nearby store to clean up. She told employees she'd been raped and asked them not to call police. When police arrested her, they told her, she told them rather, that they had the wrong woman, that she was Samantha Gonzalez from Cincinnati, Ohio. This afternoon, a state doctor told the court that Guzman, suffers from paranoid schizophrenia, that she hallucinates, stares into space, and has conversations with people who aren't there. The district attorney says he asked the court to find her not guilty by reason of insanity to avoid a trial.
Now we are coming up to the court trials, and this is what makes this case so infamous. The way she acted in court was so bizarre and strange. She was smiling, but not in a creepy way. It was kind of sarcastic and snarky way. She would point to her eyes, looking at the camera, kind of indicating that she wasn't crying, I guess. These clips have been posted over and over again on TikTok, and she's gained quite a fan base, which, get better idols, please. Don't support killers, it's not. Just, no. People are recreating her court appearance and making fan edits. A very popular TikTok to do with this case was a video of her with the song Sweet But Psycho by Ava Max.
Oh, she's sweet but a psycho, a little bit psycho. At night she's screaming, I'm on my mind. Oh, she's hot but a psycho, so left but she's right though. At night she's screaming, I'm on my mind. Oh, she's sweet but a psycho, a little bit psycho. At night she's screaming, I'm on my mind. Oh, she's hot but a psycho, so left.
So people are calling her sweet but psycho. So if Isabella was found guilty in her trial, she will be possibly facing the death penalty. However, the defence team took the expected plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. The defence was that she was not in the right state of mind during the murder, and this is backed up by her schizophrenic diagnosis. She's come forward saying that she doesn't even recognise a girl that did this to her own mother. So the court accepted this plea and she was found not guilty by reason of insanity.
As these state doctors determine that she's no longer a risk, a threat to herself or to the community, it could be a year, 2 years, it could be the remainder of her life.
Now, George Brockler told me that it won't be an easy process. He says it wasn't an easy decision. He says down the road, once she's treated at the hospital in Pueblo, she'll have to come back to court so that the judge can see the process that she's making. And again, he said it's for an indeterminate period of time. It could be for the rest of her life. It could be a year or two before she's back out in public. Reporting live in Arapahoe County, Lance Hernandez, 7 News.
And she was ordered to serve an indefinite amount of time in a psychiatric hospital where she can get the proper treatment that she needs. This means that she could be released when she's deemed mentally sound by psychiatrists, or she may spend the rest of her life in the Colorado Mental Health Institute. She's tried to appeal this decision a few times as she believes that now she's on medication, she's ready to reintegrate back into society.
They were chilling images of a woman who murdered her mother, Isabella Guzman, smiling for the cameras after stabbing her mom 79 times. Now she says she is ready to return to society.
Guzman was 18 at the time and found not guilty by reason of insanity. Well, now she tells CBS 4's Rick Salinger she's on medication and her sanity has been restored.
I was not myself when I did that, and I have since been restored to full health.
It was 7 years ago Isabella Guzman committed an unspeakable crime. In this Aurora home, she stabbed her mother to death 79 times in the face and neck.
I was abused at home by my family for many years. My parents are Jehovah's Witnesses, and I left the religion when I was 14, and the abuse at home worsened after I quit.
Court documents indicated she had been at extreme odds with her mother, Yun-Mi Hoy. She argued with her and wrote, "You will pay."
The fight with my mom was terrible, and I was injured in the process. I have the scars on my hands. I don't know if you can see or not.
For so many who knew her, it was hard to imagine Isabella with such a sweet face could carry out such a vicious act. Found not guilty by reason of insanity, she was sent to the state hospital in Pueblo, where we spoke to her.
I'm not mentally ill anymore. I'm not a danger to myself or others.
And that she's mentally stable enough to be released. She's been on medication for a long time, and this has helped her mental health massively. But if she's released, then there's no guarantee that she will take this medication and she might go back to her old mindset.
Life here, not surprisingly, has been difficult. In 2015, she reported to police she had been sexually assaulted by a hospital employee in a closet.
He asked me if I wanted to go in there and look through to get some clothing, so I did. The other patient left, and he went in there and shut the door behind him.
The case was investigated by the state hospital's police. The Department of Human Services denied our request for information, citing privacy laws. Isabella said there were 2 other incidents with the same employee.
I was afraid that if I didn't do what he wanted, that he could ruin my life.
She is now seeking prosecution of the man she claims assaulted her. But the Pueblo DA says he never got such a case back then from the hospital police.
So hard on me emotionally and mentally. It made me feel like I wanted to give up.
But what Isabella Guzman would like most of all is release from this facility.
If I could change it or if I could take it back, I would.
She is hoping to see freedom one day. Rick Salinger, covering Colorado.
A Colorado woman who stabbed her mother 79 times inside their home in Aurora, killing her, won a round in her bid for eventual freedom. Isabella Guzman was found not guilty by reason of insanity and has spent the past 7 years at the state hospital in Pueblo. Last November, Guzman told CBS 4 in a virtual interview she's on medication and has had her sanity restored. A judge has now ruled she can leave the state hospital for group therapy and other types of therapy. She will be required to wear a GPS tracker. Katie Johnston for CBSN, Denver.
So that's the end of this video. Let me know your thoughts down below. This is quite a wild case. I just don't get these people who are sensationalizing it on TikTok and whatever. But get better idols, honestly. Anyway, let me know your thoughts down below. Again, hit that like button, subscribe, comment down below, and I will see you in my next video. If you want to watch another video, I'll put a playlist on screen, and to subscribe there'll be a picture of my face which you can click. Okay, bye.